One of the biggest challenges for people when it comes to intuition is being able to see clearly. Clairvoyance is a big hurdle for many people. And a lot of this has to do with the terminology, the belief, and what's really happening. Today, I want to kind of shift the perspective on the concept of intuitively seeing. And I want to thank you for joining me here. I want to thank you more so for you opening up your intuition. Seriously, it is going to improve your life. So please make sure to subscribe, hit the notification button, stick with me on this journey, and let's do this. I want to talk about the concept of struggling to get visuals, struggling to see. Perhaps today it's going to be about ripping off that pop culture band-aid, or how we translate what we're hearing from intuitives that are out there in the world and doing this. There's a big image, which I guess that's a bit of a pun, but there's a big image to what it looks like to intuitively see. And there's this vibe to it. Well, I see this, I see this, I see this. And when you hear an intuitive saying, I see an image of this, or I see your loved one, or I see a scene playing out in front of me, we tend to jump right to, well, they're seeing it as vividly as if it was really here, or like right in front of them, or on a television screen, right? And that's normal, natural, and common. And it's not necessarily how it's being delivered is wrong, because it's not, because it would take quite a bit for an intuitive to stand there and say, well, I'm visually seeing, which really means that this is what it looks like for me. That's not what we want to hear. For an intuitive, we want to hear, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? So today I want to break down, what does it mean to see intuitively? Because it doesn't always mean what we think it means. And I was actually pretty surprised myself. For me, 18 years ago, I opened up intuitively, but I was 32. So you can do the math on that one. I was 32 years old when I opened up. I had a life. I had a full life of not living intuitively, I look back now and I wish I would have opened up sooner. That's another very common thread amongst students and members. I do. I wish I would have opened up, but regardless, here I am. I had a life before intuition. I have a life after intuition. And now I'm getting to know all these intuitives as I'm going along. I started teaching, back in 2007, something like that. And along the way, I have been able to get into these really deep, wonderful discussions with people about how they see. And in an upcoming video, I'll talk about a bunch of different techniques that they use that are really out there, maybe ones you haven't thought about, which is going to be really cool. But let's stick with this topic today. When I talk to them and I say, okay, what does it look like for you? There's a whole spectrum. And I'm not even going to get into the concept of labeling it as, this is what it's called when you can't see something in your head. Yes, there are labels out there you can use, but today I'm talking intuitively. So that's the first thing. We need to separate how we understand intuition visually versus imagination, or versus just seeing things in this agreed upon reality. The majority of intuitives do not see an apple in their mind, a red apple in their mind, as if it's sitting on the kitchen counter. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you exactly how I see, and we'll start there, because there are people that see in a lot more detail than I do. But what we're going to get to today is how that doesn't matter intuitively. So when it comes to how I see, when I see something, first off, if I see something in a psychic way, I'll see it internally. If I see something in a mediumship way, I will see it outside of myself. So psychically, in my mind, which is kind of what the focus is on this video, when I see something, it's as if the object or the person or the scene is in a very dark room, and you can barely make out what I'm looking at, right? So if I was to see an apple intuitively, for example, so let's say intuition shows me an apple and I was to see that, it would be as if you walked into a dark room, there's a table in the middle of the room, there's an apple on the table. I can't quite tell what color the apple is. I can't tell if it's old, if it's new. I just know it's an apple. And this is where I want to turn the tables. If you heard that key phrase in there, I just know, that's intuition. That's intuition. Intuition is not imagination. It is definitely different. And it's also not memories. So when people say, well, I can't see intuitively, somebody else might come back and say, well, can you remember something you did yesterday vividly? Because then you should be able to see. No, intuition is a little bit different than that. Intuition is your five senses coming together to pass along a message. And it's not that they always use just one channel. So for me, my vision, if I was going to get really descriptive on how I would explain to somebody what I'm seeing when I see a vision or an image intuitively, when I see, it's a combination of seeing and knowing. With that combination, that's where the accuracy lies for me. When it comes to seeing things, not everyone gets them in these bright, vivid colors. And what I really want you to take away from this session today is that in no way means you can't see visually intuitively. It in no way means you're not clairvoyant. It just means when your intuition speaks, it's going to flow in such a way that it's going to show you something. You will feel as if you saw an apple, or you saw a truck, or you saw a scene. You will feel as if perhaps it was like a show you watched yesterday and you vaguely remember it. This is what it means to see intuitively. Now, there are individuals who have very vivid visuals intuitively, but they're all across the board, right? You have someone that can see in like ultimate color and ultimate detail, and that's fantastic. But you have somebody else that can see in like shades of different, colors, and it's kind of muddy and whatnot. That's equally as wonderful, because what's behind both of those is the intuitive knowing. When you're having an intuitive moment, you're witnessing what is being given to you, and you're understanding the why behind what's being given to you. It's one thing to picture an apple. It's another for you to have an intuitive moment where you see an apple. I should put that in quotes, where you intuitively see an apple for a reason. Intuition doesn't give you an image or a vision or try to explain something through your five senses for no reason at all. So you can picture an apple right now for no reason at all. Absolutely. Let's imagine it. Put a little face on it. Hands and legs. Let it dance. Woo! It's going to be adorable, right? It's cute. Super great. Maybe it'll turn into a cartoon. Who knows? I think that's wonderful. But when you hold yourself in a space of receiving intuition, you are not forcing it, you're not creating it. And if an apple is delivered to you in a visual, it's delivered to you on a platter of understanding. It's delivered to you on a display of the why. There's always a why behind what you're seeing intuitively. And even if it's a quick flash of an image with not a lot of, you can't seem to round it out and understand everything as to why you're seeing it right that moment, there's always a why. It'll unfold later. Or perhaps you're a reader and you're meeting with a few clients later that day and you just see a flash of a black and tan Cocker Spaniel purebred dog. And it just flashes through your head. And you're like, well, I wonder why I saw that. There was no reason why I saw that. Well, a couple hours later, you sit down with the sitter and you're doing a reading for someone, and that's their dog. So there's always a why and a reason behind a visual that you receive intuitively. So I would love to separate this concept of I can't see into two different categories. If you struggle with visualizing in your regular day-to-day life, imagination, memory, those types of things, then you struggle seeing visually. And that's how you're wired. You're probably also uber creative, and you can also create things. You have an amazing system. You are amazing. And so you're going to respond to the world around you in your own unique, beautiful way. When it comes to seeing intuitively, that's a whole different ballpark. So I'm going to challenge you to stop saying, I can't see intuitively, and really bring to the forefront of your mind, when I see intuitively, and this is what hopefully you're going to say to yourself, when I see intuitively, it's very different than when I use my imagination. It's very different when I try to picture something or someone in my day-to-day life. It's very different than when I try to retrieve memories. When I see intuitively, the visuals that I get are wrapped in a neat little bow of understanding. And they might not be crisp and super clear and vivid color. That doesn't matter. What matters is the understanding behind it. So knowing this and having opened up this discussion, hopefully you will back off a little bit from I can't see, and instead play around with the concept that you can. Say, why not? I can see. Yeah, I can see intuitively. This is how my intuition works. We can't compare it to anybody else. We absolutely can't. Instead, we got to dive into I can see, I can feel, I can hear, I can smell, I can taste intuitively. All of those. All of those are open for me. Even if you don't have taste buds, even if you can't taste the cookie you ate while you were watching the session, you can still have your taste buds utilized in the process of intuition. So step into it knowing it's a completely different animal than your day-to-day life. Know that the understanding is a key component to it. And when you hear intuitives such as myself say, like I'm intuitively seeing this, I'm intuitively seeing that, please know that it is a beautiful mixture of a visual. And it doesn't matter if it's faded, vague, or strong. It's a beautiful mixture of that visual with understanding. So here's your challenge for this week. What I want you to do is I want you to say, I can see intuitively. I can see intuitively. I'm clairvoyant. And use that affirmation for a while. Use it for a while. Let go of all the stereotypes, right? And know that when an intuitive says, I can hear something intuitively, it's not the same as if you turn on the radio in your living room and you can hear that radio. Know that if an intuitive says, I can smell cigar smoke, they're smelling it, but it's the understanding of smelling it. It's not the actual smell. And when an intuitive says, I can see something intuitively, it's not the actual vision. It's the experience of the vision wrapped in understanding. So do that for me. And then come back next week. We'll keep going with this. But come back next week. Do that for a while. Just say, I'm clairvoyant. I can see intuitively. And then welcome however that unfolds for you. Because when you open the door to it and you welcome it, it'll grow. That's what we're here for. Okay, I touched on imagination versus intuition, which might have sparked you to think, I want to learn more about that. Click this video next. It's going to take you right there.